getting you ready for tonight's kickoff between the New York Giants and Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. Former Chiefs offensive lineman Joe Valerio of the Believe Podcast Network joins us to break down the keys of the game and how the Giants can pull off a win. That's coming up next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina, and happy Monday, happy game day to everybody. We have Monday Night Football today, and we are going to get you ready for Monday Night Football. The New York Giants at the Kansas City Chiefs tonight at 8:15 Eastern, and we have a special show for you today. My guest is former Kansas City offensive lineman Joe Valerio, who, by the way, also has a connection to the New York Giants, which I'm going to let him tell you about when we start the interview coming up in just a bit. But Joe Valerio is one of the co-hosts of the Believe podcast that covers the Kansas City Chiefs. And he came on and he was tremendous. Let me tell you, he broke down the Kansas City Chiefs, the weaknesses, how the Giants can win this game. A lot of good stuff. So if you're trying to figure out, what to expect from the Giants, what you might see tonight from the coaching staff, Joe has it all for you. And before we get to our interview with Joe Valerio, just let me get you up to date on the New York Giants injury situation, which I want to talk about just a little bit. Saquon Barkley, Lorenzo Carter, Carter Coughlin, Nate Ebner, and Kenny Golladay all ruled out of the game. And the guys who were listed as questionable for the game, Sterling Shepard, tight end Caden Smith, and receiver Kadarius Toney. Now, of those three, I do think all three will be able to play. I'd be very surprised. Toney's been making great progress, and really he's the guy I think you want to have in the lineup against this Kansas City Chiefs defense, given how much they have struggled against the pass and just covering speedsters and whatnot. So Toney, things are certainly trending up, but as is always the case, the Giants will put all these questionable guys through a pregame workout to determine if they're going to be good to go, and they will make a final decision then. But again, I would be very surprised if Shepard, Toney, and Smith do not play. Now, I do want to talk about the guys who have been ruled out because this is kind of interesting. So Lorenzo Carter has been ruled out, and he, of course, was getting a lot of snaps as the strong side linebacker. And I'm curious to see how they're going to fill that spot there. I'm guessing Cam Brown might see some more snaps than usual at that spot. You're also going to see, obviously a rotation between Azeez Ojulari and O'Shane Ximines, both of whom are more weak side linebackers. But I'm curious to see if maybe one of those guys gets moved over to that strong side. But that Carter injury is kind of interesting because the Giants pass rush as is not very potent. Last week, of course, an exception. They exploded for 6 sacks against a weakened Carolina Panthers offensive line. So I'm curious to see how that comes together. Now, also want to mention, as I record this, there is a possibility that Ellerson Smith and Aaron Robinson, cornerback Aaron Robinson, might be activated for the Monday night game. Ellerson Smith is a defensive end. He was drafted with the idea of providing, a boost to the pass rush. I would be surprised if he's going to be activated this week. I really would. I think if anybody's going to be activated, maybe we see Aaron Robinson, the cornerback. And even if he is activated, he's probably not going to see a whole lot of snaps. So I'm not anticipating those guys, if they are in the lineup, to see a lot of snaps, maybe about a dozen or so in certain spot situations. But the Giants a little thin at linebacker. Now Carter Coughlin, there was a report by The Athletic that Carter Coughlin has an ankle injury that could keep him out for a few weeks. And if that's the case, fully expect Benardrick McKinney to be signed off the practice squad to the 53-man roster to fill that void. And Benardrick McKinney last week against the Panthers in his debut as a Giant played pretty well. I mean, he was very active in limited snaps. So I could see him potentially having a larger role in the defense if if they bring him up from the practice squad to the 53-man roster instead of just a standard elevation. All right, and finally, before we get to the interviews, just want to talk about Saquon and Kenny Golladay for a moment. Now, originally, I think the plan or the expectation was that both of those guys might miss between 1 and 2 weeks. They are now missing 3 weeks. They have each missed 3 weeks. And of course, 3 weeks is the period for injured reserve now. And I get it. Injuries are tricky. You have no idea how well or how quickly a guy is going to recover. That said, considering how conservative the Giants were during training camp with holding guys out and waiting for them to really be, as close as possible to a 100%, I was a little surprised that the Giants didn't put Golladay and Barkley on injured reserve, again, knowing that they would only be without them for 3 weeks and that they could bring them back after that 3-week period was done. And the reason I say that is because for the same reason why they were so conservative in the summer with injuries, with holding guys out as a precaution, the thinking was it's a long football season, so why rush anybody back? Well, you know what? When Barkley and Golladay got hurt, there was still a lot of football left. So I find it interesting that the same logic didn't apply as it did in the summertime. So it's water under the bridge. It's too late to do anything about it now, obviously, but just something I thought I would mention. It is one of the thoughts that I mentioned in my notebook over the weekend on Giants Country, and it's just something I wanted to talk about here. All right, Giant fans, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Joe Valerio, co-host of the Believe in Chiefs podcast and former Kansas City Chiefs offensive lineman, and a guy with a special Giants connection who will tell you about that coming up. He's coming up after the break. I think you're going to really enjoy the interview. I know I enjoyed it, and that will be up next. Hey, Giant fans, before we continue the interview with former NFL offensive lineman Joe Valerio, today I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle. DirecTV Stream brings you your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch all your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. And best of all, there's no annual contract and no need to buy a separate device for everything you want to watch. So stop waiting and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. Visit directtv.com to learn more today. All right, welcome back, Giant fans, to the Locked On Giants podcast. My name is Patricia Traina, and as promised, I am pleased to be joined by Mr. Joe Valerio. He is the host of the Believe in Chiefs podcast, along with Jeff Bedoyton. Joe is also a former Kansas City Chiefs offensive lineman, I believe a center, second-round pick, 1991. And yes, I remember that far back because that shows you how long I have been covering the NFL and the Giants. Joe, delighted to have you with me. Thank you so much for the time today.
Oh, thank you, Patricia. It's great. I have a real good connection to New York. I live here in Philly, so while I cover the Chiefs, Philly's my hometown. So I'll always have the NFC as close to my heart, and rooting for my hometown Eagles and watching all those great NFC games. But the Giants were the first team that I worked out for as a college player. The Giants, Terry Bradway was one of the scouts at the time, went on to be the GM of the Jets, was a head of scouting for the Chiefs when I was there. And he brought me up to New York, to Giant Stadium, and I had my workout. And so I'll always have, every time I drive up, 95, whether it's to visit family or friends or take a trip, and I see Giant Stadium, I always think of my time there as being my first NFL experience as a college player, which is really cool.
That is cool. That is a cool story. Just think what might have been, right?
Oh, I know. I have so many great. I think back to those 90s linemen, Riesenberg and Bob Cratch, and oh my gosh, the names go on and on. Jumbo Elliott. I mean, just a fantastic group of linemen back then. And Bart Oates. I mean, geez, it's just I'm a football fan. While I cover the Chiefs and I do root for the Eagles since I grew up in Philly. I am a football fan. I just love the game. I love all the teams. I love those Parcells Giant era. My God, they were so good and such great players. I got to go on vacation once with Howard Cross, which was a lot of fun. In Hawaii, which was cool. We did a mission trip over in Hawaii, so I got to meet him. So Giants, Giants and me, we're like this. We're like this. So
well, you're going to be talking though about the Chiefs because you're the Chiefs expert for the Believe podcast network, and I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to choose between the Giants and the Chiefs. But what I am going to ask you about, excuse me, I want to talk about coming off of last week's win with that. That was an embarrassing win for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, unexpected to say the least. How, based on what you've heard and seen, how have they responded to that loss this week in practice? Are they business as usual? Are they angry? Where are they at right now?
Well, I think, all athletes and coaches, even though Andy Reid's been doing this a long time, right? 100 wins with two different teams. He's been there. He's been around the block. It's not his first rodeo. It's not his first up and down season. But he is working that team the way that he always does. Andy's not a roller coaster ride of a coach. You what you see is what you get. To use an old school term, he's a steady Eddie. He just keeps going. He doesn't take the losses too hard, and he doesn't over celebrate the wins. He knows that you have a job to do the next week. So I think that's going to be good for this team, because the last thing this team needs to do, this Kansas City Chiefs team, is get on a roller coaster. Because I think if they do, I think it would be disastrous. I think right now, if I had to give my elevator pitch on what is wrong with the Kansas City Chiefs and where the Giants fans could have, I know that the team is struggling. I know they're 2-5, and I see it. I see what's happening on their offensive line. My goodness, it's a revolving door with injuries, and it's hard to get chemistry on the O-line when that happens and give your quarterback a chance to succeed. But what gives the Giants fans hope is that this Chiefs team continue. If the Giants fans look to win this game for the Giants, the Chiefs right now, it's a defensive problem. It's a defensive problem that's pervading into the offense, and it's forcing Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid to press, which ultimately is forcing Patrick Mahomes to press. Patrick Mahomes feels this incredible need to stay on the field. In that Titans game, they only had the ball for 6 minutes, Patricia, 6 minutes in the first half. And I was kind of joking and was talking to somebody about that. And I said, Vince Lombardi's Packers can't win a game if you only have the ball for 6 minutes in the first half. Any dynasty you could pick, the Montana 49ers of the 80s, the Brady Patriots of the 2000s, like no team is winning a game with 6 minutes. I don't care if you have Patrick Mahomes. You could have three Patrick Mahomes out on the field. And that's the problem. That's the problem with this team. And I think to kind of answer your question, come full circle, that was a long answer to a short question. The problem with this team and why Andy can't allow them to press anymore is because if they do, I think it's only going to sink them further. So that's my kind of analysis on how Andy has been approaching this week. And plus, let's be honest, Andy is fantastic on what I would call bye weeks. And this is like a semi-bye week, right? Having played that game and then going to a Monday night, he gets an extra day, right? Not an extra week like you do in a bye, but we'll give, Andy's awesome with extra time. And I think that is going to help this team. This Monday night game couldn't come at a better time for this team, short of it being a bye week, because this team needed time to refocus and figure out what they're going to be for the rest of the season.
All right. Now, excuse me, you brought up Patrick Mahomes. I want to stay with that if I could for a moment. You mentioned that it looks like he's pressing, that he feels the need to stay on the field. Historically speaking, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Chiefs defense has never really been a super powerhouse defense. They've been good. They haven't been like a top 5 unit. So why is this year different to where maybe he feels he needs to be on the field longer, do you think, as opposed to past years?
I think, and I don't mean to make this a simple answer, because they're that bad. Because they are that bad. They are getting owned up front. I mean, and the thing that is ironic might be the wrong word. I always use the word ironic wrong and incorrectly. But the thing that is interesting about this defense is that this was supposed to be the year they made the moves to be a great defense. They signed Jarran Reed to be the run stopper in the middle. They decide that, with Frank Clark coming back and at least being through the offseason healthy, we're going to bring Jarran Reed in. We're going to move Chris Jones to the outside. We're going to continue to develop, the defensive line and put a chemistry together that works, because I think the Chris Jones experiment of going to defensive end was on paper what the Chiefs needed to do to create a formidable front four. Then, the development of Willie Gay Jr., Nick Bolton, the linebacker experiment has died as well. I mean, all these experiments that we thought in the offseason were going to make them a top 5, maybe even a top 3 defense, they've all gone to heck in a handbag, and they can't stop the run. They're completely miserable at the mid-range passing game. When teams start to stretch the field horizontally, whether it's from the 6 yards deep or to like 15 yards deep, their linebackers have not been covering. Their linebackers are small. When your Giants fans watch this game, first thing they're going to notice this defense, how small it is. I mean, they are. It's almost like it looks like 7 defensive backs out there all the time. Even though Steve Spagnuolo, as we all know, obviously he has a former affiliation with the Giants. Like, he loves that 4-2-5 defense. He loves it. The Chiefs have played nickel, first down, second down, third down, the entire tenure he's been there. Right. That's their thing. It's the 4-2-5. Right. It's 2 athletic big linebackers, 5 really good defensive backs with 1 big run stopper like a Tyrann Mathieu. And that's how you stop, this passing league, right? That's how you become a successful defense in this passing league, is by having more people that can cover. And right now, Coach Spags doesn't have any of that. Like, he doesn't have big linebackers that can fill the run. He's got a defensive line that's in shambles because nobody has figured out what they were supposed to do with this new front that they were supposed to have. And then, and it just seems like the effort is not there from a defensive backfield perspective. And I think what the problem is, and I'm going to circle it all the way back. Sorry, it was another long answer to the Patrick Mahomes issue, is I think he has completely lost confidence in this defense. It used to be where if they got behind by some, he felt comfortable that they were going to bend and not break. But this defense is completely broken at this point. And you watch what the Titans did, and and it wasn't even Derrick Henry. Like, everybody thought it was going to be Derrick Henry was going to run for 300 yards or something in that game, in that Titans game, and he didn't. He only had, I don't even think he had 100 yards rushing, but he had 100 total yards because they were using him with the extended run game by dumping the ball to him occasionally, which was really smart on the Titans' part, because I don't think Coach Spags was ready for that. So, it's just a pervasive issue right now. And Patrick Mahomes is carrying the entire weight of the Kansas City Chiefs, the city of Kansas City, the state of Kansas, the states of Kansas and Missouri, and any NFL fan who likes the Chiefs, he's carrying them all on his shoulders. And that is really, really hard for a young kid to do.
Sure, because he ends up pressing when he's, on offense. And like you said, the need to stay on the field for as long as he can. Now, just staying with the defense, I mean, it sounds like there's no salvaging this unit. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, but, if you were advising Spags on how to fix this, where would you start?
I'd start with the linebackers, because I think it's what's hurting them the most. I would, and I don't even know what you do at this point. You're going to be halfway through the season here in a few games, and I don't know where you start. Are there any, you can't get Ray Lewis out of retirement, right? He's probably not going to come play for the Chiefs right now, and that's what they need. They need something. They need some spark on that defense of somebody who can, at the linebacker position, cover tight ends, cover a big receiver, and can stop the run. And they don't have that right now. They just don't have that right now. And between the injuries, having, not having the right personnel out on the field. I mean, we've lost, Anthony Hitchens has been questionable. Nick Bolton and Willie Gay's had some injuries. Like, that unit hasn't had a chance to play. When Ben Neiman's out there with Willie and Nick, when they do actually get into what's a traditional 4-3 defense, like I said, they look so small. Like they just look like, like they look tiny, and that's got to give so many offenses a lot of confidence, And so I think, if I had a wet magic wand, Patricia, I'd say, go out and sign a Ray Lewis type or two, and just fill them in at linebacker and see how it works. Because I think that would be at least the first piece of the puzzle that I would look at, and then I would start with the defensive backfield, and really get after some veterans in the offseason that can be run stopping corners, run stopping safeties, but also cover. And then they work on the defensive line later, because I think they have the pieces there. I think they have the right people on the bus. They just need to get in the right seats on defense. And that's sort of my analysis of where this defense is right now.
All right, Giant fans, we still have more with Joe Valerio on today's show, but have you checked out BuiltBar.com yet? I know I've been talking about Built Bar every day on the show, or just about every day. And if you haven't checked them out, please give them a look-see. I think you'll be pretty impressed. Built Bar has 9 amazing flavors, plus a limited time selection of specific flavors that they roll out. And lately, they've been rolling out new flavors on their website, BuiltBar.com, every few days. So there's sure to be a flavor that you're going to find that you're going to like, available in nut and nut-free varieties. Built Bar is the perfect choice for a low-carb, low-sugar, and high-protein treat, and it will satisfy your sweet tooth because each Built Bar is covered in real milk chocolate. So when you visit BuiltBar.com and use our promo code LOCK15, you will get 15% off your first order. Again, that's BuiltBar.com with the promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15 at BuiltBar.com for 15% off your first order. All right, Giant fans, still more to come on today's show. But first, let me tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline is back and better than ever, offering a new web interface for the start of basketball season, more props, more odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head on over to their updated site to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use our promo code Locked On. From basketball, football, baseball postseason, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right down to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, now taking a look at the Giant game. The Giants are coming into Kansas City. They have some injuries on offense. As we record this, we don't know if Kadarius Toney will be available. It looks like he's going to be available. He was able to practice a little bit on Friday. We don't know if Saquon Barkley is going to be available. We don't know if Kenny Golladay is going to be available. As you mentioned, the Giants have had the offensive line revolving door, although it looks like they're going to stay with the same lineup for the second week in a row. So that being said, where can this Giants offense potentially take advantage of this Chiefs defense? Where's their best bet?
Well, number one, if Saquon can play, right, I think that's going to be critical, right? If they can, have him healthy and he can provide sort of the put the pressure on that defense to stop the run, and I think what that will do for Daniel Jones is that'll open up the middle passing game. Because if I were an offensive coordinator, and if I were, obviously the only offensive coordinating I ever do is when I play, PlayStation or video games. But if I were, had that group, I would run the ball till they stopped it. To have them start to keep bring the linebackers up, force those linebackers to fill the holes, stop Saquon. If they can do that, then what that does, that opens up the sort of what I call the mid-range passing game. The Chiefs, now that they have Sorensen out of the lineup, they don't really get beat deep much. They've got pretty decent team speed in the backfield on defense. So it's not like you're going to beat them with bombs and Hail Marys and going for broke, right? That's not the way you're going to beat that defense. And I don't know if that's the way that a young Daniel Jones, beats, at least a defense that has championship DNA, right? I mean, while the Chiefs might be struggling right now, they still do have quite a bit of what I call championship DNA out there. They're still pretty solid, players with experience. So you're not going to beat them deep. You're not going to just like go for broke, throw bombs, try to make big plays. To me, the way that the Giants need to beat this team is by being methodical, the way that the Titans were. If they can get anywhere close to the time of possession that the Titans did, and keep their offense on the field and keep Patrick off the field, and then forcing Patrick to press when he is on the field, I think that's the way you beat them with the Giants offense. I think it's run it till they stop it, force the linebackers to keep thinking about the run, and then you start popping the middle of the field, horizontal stretch passes from 6 to 15 yards, chip away, own the field, own the clock, and make it a methodical win offensively. Defensively, that's another story. And I think and getting that line to play together. Now, I mean, that's a good, Patricia, you bring up a great point. I mean, I went back and looked at where this offensive line was supposed to start the year in September. And, you had Pert and Hernandez and Gates and Lemieux and Thomas. I thought that was a pretty solid line. Like on paper, they all seem to be, for getting 5 players together, I thought that was a pretty good group. But now all of a sudden, Solder, who was always in the mix, he's playing right tackle. You got Pert at left tackle, that's huge, right? To have to make that jump from right to left. Hernandez is the only person in there that started the season. And then, the fracture to Gates, a right tackle playing left tackle. And that's tough. That's tough to do. But I'm glad to see that they're playing, because I always root for the offensive line. I'm glad to see that they're getting some consistency. So, but flipping it over to the defense, Patricia, I think what does the Giants defense need to do? Well, the Chiefs running game right now is in fragments a little bit. I mean, they're struggling a little bit in what I would call the pure run game. Not having Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that's really hurt them. And I think Darrell Williams is okay, but he's not your like a premier running back that's gonna he's gonna just he's not Derrick Henry, let's put it that way. He's not Saquon Barkley, and I think where the Giants need to do is they need to keep Patrick in the pocket. I mean, that's the way defenses have beaten the Chiefs. If you watch the way the Titans rushed Patrick, they did not rush him in the traditional way. They built a wall that kind of kept him contained from tackle to tackle. And if you can keep him contained from tackle to tackle, he's not going to be as effective as when he can find the pocket within the pocket and, go parallel to the line of scrimmage and run sideways. And then, because all that does is that gives Tyreek Hill, Pringle, and Travis Kelce, you give them an extra second to get open, they're getting open. And I think so defensively, you got to really contain Patrick and mush him into the pocket and keep the pocket very contained. And then you've got a chance. And then, because he's not super tall, and he's not like that statuesque quarterback that's just going to sit back there and wait to pick his shots. And so I think that's how they beat them is really, keep Patrick in the pocket, don't allow them to pass, bracket Kelce and Hill, and I think they can do similar things to what Tennessee did, as long as you can keep that offense off the field, because they will get their rhythm eventually.
Sure. What do you see as the X factor to this game? Something that maybe we're not talking about a lot or writing about at this point?
Probably special teams. I think if the Giants, can really focus on doing something spectacular in the special teams game, maybe it's, come up with some kind of a different return, maybe go after a punt or two, and really make an effort to block a punt. Look, no offense. I think just on paper, knowing what I know about the Chiefs and having watched the Giants and there's some of their struggles, and again, I'm not being critical, of the team. They are struggling a little bit at 2-5, but I think they're just going to have to do something different if they want to win this game, especially going into Arrowhead. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to hear. Chiefs fans are going to be really rowdy. There's going to be a lot of barbecue smoke over the stadium, and it's going to be intimidating for the Giants, because it is a very intimidating place to play and to go into, because it's so loud. Even though the Chiefs are struggling, this is them coming back to Kansas City on Monday night with my good friend Tim Grunhard, the starting center during the 90s and early 2000s, going into the Ring of Fame. The stadium's going to be pretty electric, and regardless of whether the Chiefs are 3-4 or not. And I think their fans this is their last shot, because this is their last shot to be, the 12th person out on the field. Because I'm telling you, if the Giants go in to this game and they win this game, I have a feeling that the Chiefs season is going to plummet. I do, because they've got some tough games coming up with Green Bay. They're going to be heading into a big bulk of their AFC West schedule, and there's a lot of parity there right now. So I think I think that's bad for the Giants in some ways, because the Chiefs fans are going to be crazy. But if they can jump out early and do something crazy in special teams and score a special teams touchdown early and let the Chiefs get behind, I think the fans are going to go down, and it could be an opportunity for the Giants to pull something out. So that's kind of how I feel about the X factor in this game. It's keeping the fans out of it and maybe doing something miraculous in special teams.
That's a part of the game that I know we don't talk about very often. It's interesting you bring that up, because last week the Giants didn't really do anything great, spectacular on special teams, but they did have one play where they set up to block a punt. I don't think they were able to do that, but and then of course now the Giants got to figure out who the returners are going to be, because they have injuries at those spots. But yeah, special teams, and that's Joe Judge's forte. So
yeah, it's they got to do something, because look, you give Andy Reid an extra day to prepare. You got a team that has its back against the wall. I mean, even though it's a 17-game season, 3-5 is going to be a really uphill battle for the Kansas City team. If especially, and again, I mean, no offense to the Giants, but if the Giants at 2-5 can come in and beat them, I hate to say this, and I'm going to make a lot of the Chiefs fans that might be listening and make them mad. I just think the season's almost over. I mean, sure, could they pull it out and go on a run? Absolutely. But I think it would be a loss that it would be really tough for them to come back from, because of the injuries that the Giants have, the struggles that they have, having a young quarterback. Like, it has all. Now, to me, it has all it also has all of the recipe and ingredients for like one of those miraculous Cinderella wins too, right? For the Giants to be going on the road to Arrowhead on Monday night to shock the world and to pull together a game plan that beats the three-time AFC West Super Bowl bound team. That could be a huge win for this Giants team, and they're going to be motivated. Everybody wants to stick it to the Chiefs, because they have had that that air of AFC dominance, and it could be a huge win for the Giants. And what it could do for the Giants, they go into this game and win. You look at the AFC East now and you're like, wow, okay. I mean, the NFC East, and you're like, wow, okay. You got all these teams at 2-5. Hey, maybe we could pull a wild card out of this thing, because the NFC has got some parity. And so I think it's just a big game, just as big a game for the Giants as it is for the Chiefs. But Patricia, one thing we always say, and we used to say it in the locker room all the time, a lot of times the team that has the biggest advantage is the one that has the most to lose. And unfortunately, I think for the Giants, the Chiefs have a little bit more to lose in this game than the Giants do. If the Giants lose, okay, you go from 2-5 to 2-6. It's like they're in a division that it is in reality, it is going to be kind of tough to catch the Cowboys at this point at 5-1. And what does that mean for the Chiefs if they lose? The season could be over for them. So I think they have a little bit, and you're going from a three-time Super Bowl, three Super Bowl appearances in a row, to to maybe struggling to make the playoffs. So I think the Chiefs just have a little bit more to lose. Their back is a little bit tighter up against the wall at this point.
Well, it's going to be a good battle. The Giants never do well on Monday night. I don't know why that is. They just don't do well in primetime, period. I know the Chiefs are a little bit more experienced in playing in primetime. So maybe it's just, for them playing under the lights, not a big deal. I mean, we'll see. Should be a good game, hopefully, either way. Hopefully it'll be worth staying up for. Joe, great stuff. Really appreciate it. Giant fans, again, that's Joe Valerio. He is the co-host of the Believe, and that's spelled BLEAV, in Chiefs podcast. So I will have that information where you can find him in our show notes. Joe, I want to thank you for the fantastic stuff. It was great catching up with you, and congratulations to your friend. I know you guys are all like brothers, so I'm sure, it's like your brother. So congratulations on your family member getting inducted.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, and I do too hope it's going to be a great game, and I love seeing great Monday night games. And I'm a football fan. I love covering the Chiefs, but I also love the NFCs. And I really love when the AFC and the NFC, these interconference scheduled games. I love watching them, and it should be a good one. And I hope it's a good one for all the fans.
Fingers crossed on that. All right, Giant fans, make sure you keep it here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Tomorrow we'll have a rundown of the Giants Chiefs game, and we're going to move Twitter Tuesday to Twitter Friday. So you have a little extra time to get your questions in for the week. So until then, everybody, for Joe Valerio, I am Patricia Traina. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you tomorrow.